Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fortress of Comic News, episode 59. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm the other host, Mike.
Mike with his fancy background.
It's actually not a background. I acquired a lot of new roommates over the last couple weeks. This is done. Yeah, so I decided to not show off my kitchen anymore. And now I'm gonna have a variety of backgrounds. This is the one I chose this week. You got to stay tuned to see what's gonna happen next week. I don't know.
Oh, that's how you get them in.
We got a great show today.
Yeah, to say the least. Ton of news. Just so much news.
We got this little up and coming writer named Cullen Bunn. He's going to be on the show today. Wow. Probably one of the biggest names we've had on the show.
Yeah. Two in a row. Two big names in a row.
Two big names in a row, man.
And two great guys.
Here comes the snowball, everybody. Hey, we'll see you on the other side of the red carpet, all right? I'll be kissing babies and stuff. I don't know what famous people do, but I don't even like babies. They smell. But anyways, so let's just jump right into the news. As much as we like to talk about how our lives are doing because we don't get to catch up with each other, nobody wants to hear that. Not this week. All right, so we're going to jump right into the news. We'll start with some TV stuff. I'm only caught up in The Flash right now. I finished Happy. Did you finish Happy?
No, I am semi-caught up on Flash. I started catching up on Arrow, and I haven't watched Black Lightning yet, and I'm still way behind on Happy.
Okay, so I will just really quick about Happy. Great season. It was a great finish. They got more and more ridiculous up until episode 10. They are giving us a second season, which I was kind of worried about, but I think I kind of understand the premise of the second season, and I kind of want to see it. It's like we're getting the whole Happy and the guy are going to be Nick are going to be like partners in crime, or like solving crimes, I guess. I don't know. I thought it'd be pretty funny. Their interaction with each other is great, and the guy who plays Nick is just the actor's amazing. So, there's been another new DC show announced called Metropolis.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a huge DC fan. You know I'm a huge DC fan. We haven't even gotten the new sci-fi show Krypton yet. I don't think it's aired yet, has it?
No, it's mid-March, so we're almost there.
We got a trailer. It looks pretty good. We have Supergirl. That's my Metropolis show. I mean, like, essentially, where is she? Star City? But that's, I mean, what more do you need? What are those? I guess what are those like Superman fans? They're missing Superman, right? They're not missing. They're not missing a show about Lois Lane and Lex Luthor.
This is my thought process. This show isn't for us.
Okay.
Much like, I mean, you're one of the biggest Batman fans I know, and you don't watch Gotham, correct?
No, I do when it gets good. I'll start binging it, but I don't. I can't keep up with it because it just doesn't hold my interest.
Yes, but Gotham is one of those shows that I know so many people that are either ancillary comic book fans or not even comic book fans that love Gotham, and I think that's what they're trying to pick up on because the premise for this is it's Metropolis before Superman, and you're following Lois Lane. So it's the same idea. We pick the city, we pick the second most famous person in that city, and we take out the superhero, and
then we don't have to pay anyone big money.
Yeah, so it's not for us. I mean, I hope it's good, and I hope the people that enjoy that stuff enjoy it. I'll check it out. I mean, I like Gotham. I don't stay with it regularly, but I'll watch it when I get time.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it as well. I'm caught up with Flash. Flash is good. I mean, he's fighting the Thinker.
A lot of thinking going on.
I did see that Kevin Smith's directing another episode with the guy who plays there's Jinx's dad.
Machete.
Machete, he's coming back for Danny Trejo's coming back for another episode, so I was excited about that. We got a lot of trailers. Super Bowl was last weekend. Yes, I did lose the bet. So at some point, Chris is going to alert me the week of a movie release within the next year that I have to go watch the movie.
I've been doing some research, but if anybody out there has any suggestions, remember Fortress Chris on Twitter.
Yes. If you have any suggestions, please suggest it, because he's gonna send me to something really bad. And I feel like I should review it on here because I've been making you talk about My Little Pony, so I will review.
Oh, you will.
To my best of ability, I'll give my take on the movie, going in as a fan of the franchise or whatever have you.
I do want to say I did hold back a little bit because after the Super Bowl, a few people we know personally contacted me and informed me that the new 50 Shades of Grey movie was this weekend. And I felt like there's fun torture and then there's just being cruel.
Oh my god. I didn't even know that. That would have been so bad because I didn't even know that. I didn't know they were doing another one. So if you sent me that, I would have been like, wait, he's joking. Oh my god, there is another one coming out and now I have to go see it.
So many people. I'll send you some of the names after the show, but so many people were like, dude, it's great this weekend.
Oh my god. Oh, thank God I've been spared. Holy crap.
But yeah, trailers.
I would have cried. I would have cried. After the Super Bowl defeat, and then that, I would just been defeated at life. That would be my low point. Yeah, so we got a lot of trailers. Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer. It looks fun. It looks like as fun as Ant-Man was. They're doing the whole like 80s vibe thing again that they did with Thor.
Yeah.
The whole like really pop art stuff. It almost reminds me of like when I watch these movies with the color scheme and stuff. It reminds me of like a modern day 66 Batman is the way I would describe it. Of like, I don't know. I just get that vibe and it's awesome. The bright colors, the kind of comedic superheroes. I don't know. I just like 60s Batman.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the trailer. There was a lot of cool things there. I don't think we saw Michael Pena in the whole trailer. And I'm really curious to know like if he's in the movie and if so, what he's doing.
He has. I thought it was announced he was returning. Right? He was one of the best parts of the first one.
I thought he was, but I want to know.
Yeah. They didn't show him in the trailer, so maybe he's the villain. Wouldn't that be crazy?
That would be crazy.
We might be on. We said it here first, folks. Michael Pena is the villain,
especially if he does like the crazy villain monologue at the end in the way he like recaps stuff in the first movie.
Yes, that would be awesome. The Venom trailer. Let's talk about this. All right. It looks like a good movie. Does it look like a Venom movie? No, it does not look like a Venom movie. Tom Hardy's in it. Tom Hardy's doing an American accent. I'm gonna go see it. What do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
I'll go see it either way.
Yeah,
I'm with you. It looks good. I'm very cautiously optimistic about this.
Yeah.
Sony just doesn't have a great track record, and it seems too much like a cash grabby kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I love Tom Hardy. I think he can do a good Venom story. We'll see. I mean, like I said, cautiously optimistic is the word of the day. Like, it looks great, but it could just be a steaming pile of shit for all I know. Just based on their track record.
I mean, I enjoyed all the Spider-Man movies, so I probably would go into this enjoying it just as a movie. We don't really see the Venom. I mean, they show like I think it coming out of the capsule or something, but we don't really see him as Venom. So
they show the symbiote and they tease Carnage.
Yeah.
So
they tease Carnage. Who was Carnage?
Carnage was So Carnage was basically somebody took a part of the symbiote, experimented on it, and they created Carnage, which was just kind of a more 90s extreme version of Venom. So that's basically the premise there, and I mean they kind of teased it in that trailer. So
so how was it? I'm just saying, how was it teased in the trailer? I guess I didn't catch on to it.
Oh, when they show the symbiote, it's in a little vial, and a bunch of people go for it, and they look like they're from some sort of laboratory of some, about to experiment on it. It didn't look like, because I doubt that's how they're going to introduce the symbiote, because the symbiote's something that comes from outer space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could be wrong there, but it seems like they're teasing Carnage in that way.
I like Tom Hardy though, so I think that's what they're expecting, to bring in a lot of people just to see Tom Hardy act. They're really banking on that.
That alone will probably be worth it.
Yeah, so I thought it was a good trailer. Deadpool 2, that trailer, I know you probably hated it, but I thought it was a really great idea.
I didn't even watch it.
Okay, well, they broke the fourth wall. I think Josh Brolin looks awesome as Cable. It was a great trailer of like the fourth wall. The trailer wasn't finished at first, so like Deadpool's like playing with these action figures, and then they like finish the trailer off, and it just looks really good. I like the whole interaction of like Cable's all serious and Deadpool's kind of a jokester, but I think Josh Brolin is going to kill it. He looks awesome. Little surprise there that we got a trailer for the new Star Wars Solo movie, the Solo movie, and they're sticking to the May release date, which is crazy. They're not moving it to December.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Okay, let's talk about the trailer. Yeah, it looks good. There's some amazing, beautifully done camera shots in this trailer. Like, holy crap, some of the best shots I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie, I think. Obviously, they put the good ones in the trailer, but the guy who's doing the cinematography is the guy from Interstellar, I believe. So that right there is like, bam. But okay, did you enjoy it? What do you think?
I really liked it.
Yeah,
I think everything they showed looked good. I hope that it's not quite as dark when it comes out. But other than that, I really liked it. It's another kind of phrase of the day. It's really good, but it's not Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and that's the only problem I had with the trailer is like I looked at him and I just didn't see Han Solo. And I don't know if maybe we just didn't see enough of him yet, but I don't know, I didn't see it.
I have that instinct, with the trailer. I think we'll see more and they'll sell us on it as we get closer. And my feeling is at the end of the day, people have differing opinions on Last Jedi and specifically, but for me, they've been batting 1,000 with Star Wars, so you got my money. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah, some cool stuff though. I mean, Amelia Clark is Khaleesi's in it, and a lot of people are saying they think that's the girl who betrays him. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he's supposed to be betrayed in the movie at some point. The shots of Lando, Donald Glover as Lando, dude, those shots are like spot on. He was, oh man, he's gonna kill that role. Obviously we get Chewie, Woody Harrelson. It's kind of strange when Woody Harrelson calls him kid, right? That was funny. That was a funny interaction for him to be called kid. Yeah, it was fun. It was definitely fun. I really hope that it does well. I think I'm more excited for Lando than I am Han, just because Lando looks like Lando.
Yeah, and I will put up my one concern is it seems. I mean, this first part isn't a concern, but it seems like they're sticking to the EU origin of Han Solo for the most part, and going with a lot of what happened there. I really hope this isn't a greatest hits of Han Solo. Like, I don't want to see him win the Falcon in the card game, him go on the Kessel Run, him to, so on and so forth. I don't want to see everything fit into this one time period nice and neatly. I just want it to be a good story. Like, just one
it's pretty cool, the idea of, like, he wanted to be a pilot, right? And he had an opportunity to work for the Emperor, and it's like, it's almost like the whole the brainwashing of soldiers, and like, oh, he wanted to be more of a rebel and not do that. So it almost reminded me of like James T. Kirk, right? In the beginning of the new Star Trek, how he was, he wanted to be a pilot, but he was kind of like a rebel. I like it. I think it's a good way to go with him. Still not sold on how they could have CGI'd his face a little more, is all I'm saying. Disney, you have the money to do it. You just fix his face a little bit, please. So apparently there's still talks of a Lobo movie at WB. And I didn't know I wanted this man directing it until I heard this, but apparently they're looking at Michael Bay to direct the Lobo movie.
Yep.
And for any one of the DC movies to become a meme, like, this would be the one. But I think it'd be like a good thing. I don't know. I mean, Michael Bay movies, he's really good at making big explosions and a lot of money. Whether or not he can make like a story. I mean, the Bad Boys movies are like a couple of my favorites, but I could just picture, I could picture the way he does his movies, and I think that would fit for a Lobo, like the low angle shots of like people getting out of cars or like, all the explosions and stuff. I think it would work. It's just going to be Lobo driving around and making giant explosions happen.
Yep, that's all you need. I mean, there's not a whole lot there, so
there's not much more depth than that. So they also are talking about, well, I guess it's confirmed. Variety released an article about it, and they usually don't just run anything. Joaquin Phoenix is going to play the Joker in a standalone origin movie. I believe we talked about this before. Like, do we want the Joker to have an origin? Isn't that like the best part of the Joker? Mm-hmm. And when I was reading up on it, there was some little piece of the article that talks about like DC going on their own path with certain movies that are out of continuity, which is interesting because then I guess you're not being held to the you don't have the stakes like the Marvel movies where everything has to be relevant and within continuity. But it's also, I don't know if it's going to be kind of confusing for people to have two different Jokers at the same time, because they're not letting go of Jared Leto, is what they're saying.
But this is all stuff we talked about when it was first announced. But my opinion of is Jack. How do you say his name? Joaquin Phoenix. I started looking through his IMDb page, and although I know who he is, I don't think I've ever seen a movie with him in it.
Really?
So
he's a great actor.
I heard people say he's a great actor. The movies he's done seem very much off the mainstream.
Artsy, yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, that's your thing, whatever. But so I've personally never seen what he does. I've heard good things about him.
You've never seen Signs with Mel Gibson?
He's in that?
Yeah, he's the younger brother who swings away.
Okay, I've seen one movie with him in it.
Everybody's seen Signs.
But you get a great actor to play the Joker. That's what it's all about. As far as the casting, I think it'll work out because he's supposed to be a really good actor, and I'm sure he'll pull it off. But as far as the movie, I'm not sold on doing a what if or whatever DC Elseworlds movies.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm gonna pay to see it, so we'll find out how it is.
Oh, I'll see it either way.
Yeah, I'm gonna see it either way. All right, so we're gonna bring this guy on the show named Cullen Bunn.
Who's that?
Cullen Bunn. He's this new up and coming writer. You haven't heard?
No, I haven't heard of him.
All right, so let's get to the interview.
Yeah, so we got Cullen Bunn. So we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, everybody, and we're back, and we have a very special guest with us this week. I would be here all night naming the amount of books he's done. It's Mr. Cullen Bunn.
Yes, Cullen Bunn.
Yes.
If you read a lot of comics, you've definitely seen his name somewhere. Whether you're an Image fan, a DC fan, a Marvel fan. Chris is more of the Marvel fan. I'm more of the DC fan. But hey, you've got a hand in everything almost. So welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
It's like I don't think we've had any guest on the show yet that's had so much diverse stuff going on. I mean, between the creator-owned stuff, the DC stuff, the Marvel stuff, it's awesome. I'm really excited. I know Chris is a huge Cat fan, so we'll probably talk about that, some Deadpool stuff, some Image stuff. So, Chris, you should just start it off. We might be here for a few hours. No, I'm just kidding.
So, like I said in the intro, we could go on forever. So we'll try to stick more of the stuff that's going on right now that you're working on. But so you've worked for pretty much everybody in the industry. You're pretty agnostic about who you work for. What's it like working for the big two? I mean, we've had guys that have worked for other companies, but you're kind of the first one that's worked for Marvel or DC in a big time basis. So, I mean, is there a difference between them and someone like Image or Oni and so on and so forth?
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty much an extreme difference. It's when you work for Oni or Image or any of the creator-owned stuff, you're working with your own. You're probably working with a smaller company or a fewer people at least, and you're working on your own thing. So there's not a lot of. It's not even editorial oversight. There's not a lot of corporate oversight. Mm-hmm. But when you work with a company like Marvel or DC, there's going to be there's going to be more corporate oversight. There are agendas that the company has in mind for these characters. There are other writers who might be working on the same character, other editorial teams working on the same character. So it's definitely a little more. It's a little more involved in making sure all the pieces fit together, and it's rare that I have complete control over a story or can just do my own thing with it. There's always something that I kind of have to move around or navigate around.
I'm sure Marvel had something to say about you killing off the entire universe with Deadpool.
Well, I mean, look, that's a book that they got out of that it was they came to me with that title and said, "What would you do with Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe?" Mm-hmm. And then they just let me run with it, and that was because it's an alternate universe. They don't get in the way of those as much. That it doesn't matter what Jerry Dugan's doing in Deadpool because in comparison to say Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, and separate planes of existence.
That's awesome.
And so I know over your career working with characters that people are so passionate about, you've run into, let's just say, passionate people. And in specific, I wanted to quickly chat about when you took over Aquaman. I was super excited because Aquaman What?
Aren't you going to let me be done with Aquaman? Come on, that's years ago.
Well, I'm more interested, like, what's it like when... I mean, personally, I was, like, really into it. I thought it was a good book. And I didn't get why people were so angry about it. I guess I'm just more asking, like, what's it like when you get such a backlash like that? Are you just like, fuck it and move on, or...
Used to be... and that's another big difference between, say, a creator-owned book and a Marvel or DC book, is that the fan base is a lot more vocal, and in some cases they're very difficult to please. And that was a shock to me the first time I started working on a Marvel I guess it was the first time I was working on a Marvel book. That was kind of a shock to me, how much of a difference the fan base could be. And it used to be that I got very upset about it, that it really bugged me, that I'd be willing to argue about any of these things. These days, I know why people were upset about Aquaman, and I get when people are upset about these characters. And there's sometimes where I'm writing something where I'll say to myself, "Oh, people are really going to hate this." And to some degree, it's not my job to worry about what people are going to hate. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that comes off as being a little aloof or not caring. And I don't think that's the case. And I don't think that's the case for most creators, but not most of them. And these days, it's just one of those. I get it. I understand why people are upset, and I can take it. I got a pretty thick skin. I don't have a lot of tolerance for genuine hate. And snarkiness and smartassness, and I don't have a lot of tolerance for that. But I usually get where it's coming from. And like with Aquaman, I know exactly why people didn't like it. I get everything they didn't like about it. And it was funny because with that book, I remember, I had sort of specific marching orders for that book. And there were certain things that the publisher wanted to make sure were in place with the character when I took over. And some of those things people didn't like. But I also remember thinking to myself, man, I'm going to do something in the vein of my favorite Aquaman run, which was Aquaman Sword of Atlantis. And I had no idea that there were so many people who didn't like Aquaman Sword of Atlantis, which I think is the best run of Aquaman ever.
Yeah.
But so look, I'm not always going to be on the same page as fans, and sometimes it's a swing and a miss. And yeah, I kind of think, looking back on it, there were things I liked about the Aquaman run, but that was a miss, and I get why people didn't like it. There's not a whole lot I can do about it.
And I don't mean
people who didn't like it. Some people, a lot of people still liked it quite a bit, but the vast majority of true Aquaman fans did not care for it.
And I don't mean to pour salt on old wounds. I get really interested in how.
Oh, it's fine.
Like we both obviously have a huge passion for comics and the characters and all that, but I always get confused by those huge backlashes. Like, why do you care so much? Just don't buy the book.
Well, I think, a lot of people say that. They'll say, just don't buy the book if you don't like it. But I think in the case of some of these characters, Aquaman in particular, every character is somebody's favorite, right? Mm-hmm. And Aquaman, if their favorite character is, if the book is not the story they want to read about their favorite character, there's nowhere else for them to go. That's the only, the only real book they've got. So I get where that sort of frustration comes from. Is they love Aquaman, okay, as passionately as they can, and they're not getting the story they want, and that's where that frustration I feel like bubbles up from. Again, there's ways to handle that frustration. Your $2.99 a month doesn't give you the right to call me an asshole or tell me I should die.
Yeah.
Those things, it's a big difference in coming to me and saying, "Hey, I really didn't like that story, and this is why," versus, "You really suck as a human being, and if you can't accept that, you can't accept constructive criticism."
Yeah. That's my favorite line.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I do think that if the more folks could get that in their head, the happier everybody would be, because there'd actually be some sort of middle ground for a genuine conversation about things.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But we as a whole, people as a whole, right now don't seem to want to have any of those middle ground conversations. It's either you agree with me and you suck, or you disagree with me and you should die. It's
it's relevant to a lot of stuff right now. So I guess before we get into any more of the book stuff, can you just give us a little Cliff Notes version of your history of getting into comics and stuff, or the story of how it started off for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've loved comics since I was a kid. I mean, I was reading comics when I was 4 and 5 years old. I was reading comics, and I loved them. And I always, and I think if you're a person who really loves comics, at some point it crosses your mind, hey, I'd like to tell my own. And some people move past that. Some people wise up and move past that. And some people just get lost in that and can't get away from it. So I always wanted to do comics. At one time I wanted to be an artist. I was drawing my own comics. I still have them somewhere around here, and they're awful. But I was writing and drawing my own comics. I was setting up at little, hotel room conventions, real small conventions. I was setting up and selling, comics that I had photocopied on my dad's photocopier and stapled them up myself and was selling them for 35 cents or something. But as far as professionally, I had no idea how to get into comics. I mean, I didn't know how to do it. I don't feel like there was as much information out there about how to break in as there is now. So I was sending out letters after letter after letter to the publishers saying, hey, here's my pitch for Ghost Rider, and here's my pitch for Spider-Man. And, and that is not the way to get into comics. I don't care what anybody says. For a writer, sending off your pitches for your greatest Superman story or your greatest Thor story is never going to get you anywhere. But I was doing it, sending out those all the time. And what really ended up working for me was I was working at a comic shop, and another guy that worked at the comic shop was an artist. And we just started talking about doing something together. And then, a lot of years passed before we actually managed to put a book together and pitch something. And that was a book called The Damned. That my first real pitch that ever got to a publisher that they looked at was a book called The Damned. And we sent that to Oni Press, and they accepted it. And so that was my first published work, probably, I guess it's going on 11 years ago now. Wow. And then, after that, I thought money was going to start rolling in. Hey, I've got a comic book out now. That's it. I'm set.
You sit at home and wait for the check. Like, here I come.
Yeah. But no, that didn't happen. I didn't start getting phone calls from editors, and I didn't start getting a lot of money. So I moved on to another project and another one. Brian Hurt, the artist from The Damned, and I did another book called The Sixth Gun with Oni Press, and that one started getting a little more attention. I think it was DC was the first company to reach out on Twitter. An editor messaged me on Twitter and asked me to call him and offered me a job doing a 4-issue arc on Superman Batman because he liked The Sixth Gun.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And that was sort of the first real project that I did for one of the big two. And then, from there I started getting offers from Marvel to do some Deadpool short stories, and those turned into more, everything kind of turned into more work at these different publishers, and that's really where things just started falling together for me.
That's so cool. They're like, oh, hey, we like this, so here's Batman and Superman.
Yeah, I remember.
No pressure.
When he messaged me, I called Brian Hurt and I said, hey, DC just messaged me and they want me to talk about a project. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why this was the case, I thought for sure they were going to offer me a Scalp Hunter backup story I don't know if you guys remember the character Scalp Hunter. But
Yeah.
I just thought maybe it would be a Scalp Hunter backup story. It was in my head that that's what they were going to offer for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
I had no reason to think that. I just assumed that for some reason. And so when they said Superman and Batman, I was kind of over the moon, super excited for it.
That's awesome, and it kind of just took off from there. Well, I mean, what's more fun? I mean, as far as like the creative writing process goes, is it more difficult for you to do these projects that kind of have like the big names that have a lot of you need to stay in the lines here? Is it easier for you to do like these image books that are probably a little more free for you to go crazy with, or?
Well, it's I don't think it'll surprise anybody. My creator-owned stuff goes much quicker. I write it faster. The idea is I outline everything in a lot of detail, and then I go into it. By the time I get to a script, the story's pretty cemented. No matter what I'm writing. But all of the stages seem to move a little faster with creator-owned projects. And this is not a dig at Marvel or DC. It's just the nature of the book. And the way I always describe it is when you work on a Marvel or DC book, it's like going over when you're a kid and you go over to your friend's house and he has all the best toys. All the toys you've ever wanted to play with are right there in front of you. And you can play with them, but at the end of the day, you have to put them back in the box exactly the way you found them.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of, so it's a little bit slower of a process. So when I do an outline on a creator-owned book, once I'm happy with the outline, I go straight to scripting the comic. With a Marvel or DC book, the outline the initial idea needs to be approved, the outline needs to be approved, the script needs to be approved. And along the way, there are all these curveballs that could come your way. An event that you didn't know was coming up. Whoop, here it comes. Here comes an event that completely, explodes what you've been working on. And you kind of have to deal with, that stuff as well along the way. And it's just the nature of that, of that universe, of being part of a shared universe. So I can't say, look, they're both fun. I mean... They're very different processes for me, though.
Okay, cool.
So, moving from there, we'll talk a little about your Marvel work. So, it seems like mostly over the years you've kind of stuck in the XMen realm with, you've done projects here and there outside of it, but a lot of stuff, Deadpool, Magneto, we can go on for days. Is that done on purpose, or... Have you been, is that something you wanted to do when you came in? You're like, I just love X-Men, so I want to stay in that universe a little bit more, or?
Well, yes and no. I grew up loving X-Men. X-Men has always been and always will be my favorite superhero team. But I never assumed I was going to write X-Men. I kind of fell into writing Magneto. But I thought that would be it. Like, I'd be writing Magneto, and that would be as close to an actual X-Men book as I'd be writing. But at some point while I was writing X-Men, they called me and said, "Do you want to write Uncanny X-Men?" Which was the book that was the book I always collected as a kid. So that was a high point for me, is writing those characters. And if I had my way, I'd stick with it. I'd write X-Men for the rest of my days until there were no X-Men. I'd want to play in that universe. You don't always get your way with that stuff, so who knows how long it lasts. You don't. But if I had my druthers, yes, I'd write X-Men forever. A lot of it comes from just the editors that you connect with. There at both Marvel and DC, there are different groups of editors that handle different groups of characters. And I just kind of fell in with the X-Men editors, just like I fell in. I never expected to write Deadpool. Honestly, I was never a Deadpool fan. And
Chris is gonna love to hear that. Yeah, he despises Deadpool.
I'll be honest, I was never a Deadpool fan, but I fell in with editors working on Deadpool, so I kind of that's where the work was coming in. And over the years now, I've grown an appreciation for Deadpool. There are certain types of Deadpool stories I like other than, that I prefer to others. But I like Deadpool now. I just didn't like him before I started working on the character. Mm-hmm. But it all depends on the editors that you fall in with and what characters they're working on. And it could be, this isn't in the works, but an example could be that, let's say, the XMen editorial team, suddenly there's a big upheaval and they're no longer working on X-Men, and instead they are now the Avengers editors. That could change everything for me. That would change. That would flip everything on its ear, and I might suddenly no longer be working on X-Men and I'm working on Avengers, or working on nothing. Who knows? That's the nature of freelancing.
Yeah. So professional relationships are everything. Just you never know who's going to be where and what you're going to end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are just they're editors that I mesh with better than others. Just like at any job, there are going to be other employees or management or whatever that you mesh with better than others. And the ones you mesh with are the ones who are going to offer you work.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That's awesome.
So let's jump into what you're doing nowadays. A lot of creator-owned stuff. I specifically want to talk about Aftershock because I discovered Aftershock through you, and I become a big fan of what they're doing. How did you get in with Aftershock and their whole deal?
So when Aftershock formed, I was one of the first people to talk with them. Their editors contacted me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to pitch a book with us and do something with us." And I started putting a pitch together, and it was pretty. I mean, it was going pretty far along, but for various reasons, it kind of fell apart. And honestly, I was getting so busy with other work that I couldn't focus on it anyway. So I was still in touch with Aftershock, but I wasn't doing anything with them for at least a couple of years. And then fast forward a couple of years, and I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and the people from Aftershock reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to get together?" And I went and had lunch with them, and I took with me a packet of 31 paragraph pitches for ideas. I have this file on my computer. Every time I come up with a new concept for a creator-owned book, I plug in a paragraph or two about that book. And I took that with me to the meeting and handed it off to them. And in that packet were a couple of ideas that I thought no one would ever pick up on. And that was a book called at the time it was called Perilous, but eventually became titled Unholy Grail. And then a book called Dark Ark. And both of those were were ideas that I just didn't think. With Perilous or with Unholy Grail, I thought maybe it wasn't commercial enough for a publisher like Aftershock. And with Dark Ark, I thought it was just too ridiculous for a publisher to even consider it. And strangely enough, those were the two they immediately said, "These are the two we want to do." So I started working on those. And then as we wrapped up Unholy Grail, they asked me if I had another pitch, and I pitched them another project. And that's a book called Brothers Dracool, which will be coming out in a few months.
Yeah. Dark Ark has been... I'm glad that they did pick on those two, because I really enjoyed Holy Grail, and Dark Ark has been a top-of-the-list book for me. I love the twist on Christian mythology when people take that and run with it, and I'm glad that book exists.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised, because Dark Ark, for those people who haven't read it or aren't familiar with it, it's a pretty simple pitch. We all know the story of Noah's Ark, but Dark Ark is the story of the other Ark, the one that was full of all the monsters, all the vampires and the goblins and all the things that go bump in the night are stuck on this ship together. And they hate each other, and but there's the only way for them to continue existing is to find a way to make it work. And I always, it was a book that was sort of a joke for me. For years, I thought of the idea one day, and I was like, that's hilarious. It's stupid. No one will ever publish it. So I was always just sort of, it's one of those ideas that I kept coming back to every now and again, just as, for my own amusement more than anything else. And then when they took it and they decided to publish it, I kind of had to reassess it, and I decided I didn't want it to be a silly concept. I wanted it to be a book that could be taken seriously, even though the overarching idea is sort of absurd. I wanted it to be a book that I could play straight, play serious, and that's. I mean, we got Juan Doe to draw it. He's an amazing artist, and I've been super happy with it, and I'm also pleased that it had such a response that we're going into our second arc now, which is awesome.
Cool. And so recently announced was the Brothers Dracool. For anyone that isn't me and isn't already buying it, what's the pitch there?
So Brothers Dracool is the story of Vlad Tepes, better known as Vlad the Impaler or Dracula. But this is the story in actual history. Vlad and his brother Radu were abducted by the Ottoman Empire when they were teenagers. That's history, in so much as we understand it. It's all very sketchy, but the what is believed is that they were abducted by the Ottoman Empire when they were teenagers. And that's the start of the story. But where I took it is during that time that they were teenagers, the Ottoman Empire trained them to be vampire hunters. So it's the story of teenage Vlad and teenage Radu going out and fighting and killing vampires, and it's pretty much a story of them as teenage vampire hunters.
That's awesome.
Very good.
I'm sold. It's not on my poll list yet, but now it is.
It's pretty, it's pretty violent and pretty. These aren't pretty vampires. They're not.
They don't sparkle.
They don't sparkle. They don't have capes or slicked back hair. They are very nasty critters.
Chris wanted to talk about those. I have a couple books that I got to talk about too. The first of being your Army of Darkness with Ash in Space.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a huge Evil Dead fan. Chris knows this. It's probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So how did you land that? Was that a pitch that you had, or did Dynamite approach you? Or
Dynamite approached me and said, "We want you to do." This was around the time that Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe had just come out, and I was working on my next Deadpool book, and they contacted me and said, Army of Darkness book. We don't know what we don't know what what you want to do with it, but we just want you to write a story about Ash.
Yeah.
And like you, I've always been a big fan of Evil Dead and Army of Darkness. And the comics, when I went back and looked at them, they really went into some crazy places. I mean, it really blows the mythology out. So I was kind of, well, what can I do that's just ridiculous and can take the take the story to a different place? And I was like, all right, I'll just and see how that works out.
Ash in Space. I can tell you what I don't think I heard about that. Usually we're pretty good at like knowing about the books that are coming out, but I remember seeing that on the shelf and I was like, this is actually happening. Like Space and Ash. Like, this is my two favorite things. Come on.
Well, yeah, I was trying to do, I was thinking of things like it's obviously sort of a 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
But I also was thinking of things like, Jason X and things,
exactly.
In space and things.
Yes.
Let's go really somewhere ridiculous with this. And I had the book continued, those types of books, it's always difficult for sales and everything else. There were whole arcs left that were sort of a John Carter of Mars kind of vibe with Ash and things like that we were going to do with it. But hey, we got one arc of of Ash being on a space station fighting Deadites, and I'm like,
and I could almost see it like happening because they have the TV show now, Ash vs. Evil Dead. It's like, and each season gets better and better. It's like I can almost see this happening where he gets out to space for one season.
That would kind of be awesome, and it does seem like it would fit in that world, right?
It does, and I can almost see that like you got approached by, I mean, that same type of like, I don't know, tongue in cheek humor with Ash kind of is relatable to Deadpool in a way, right? I mean, that's probably why they thought, oh wow, you're already in that realm of writing this right now. That would be perfect for Ash, so I can see how that would fit.
Yeah, that's kind of where it all came from. I think it was it all kind of spawned from Deadpool. And,
I gotta talk about Regression.
Yes,
it's official ongoing right now. It's
issue 7 is getting ready to come out in the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, I read issue 6 today. It is, first off, the writing's amazing, the art is amazing. Danny Lucker, I'd never seen him do anything until now, but I picked it up because I saw you run the book, and the thing about Image books is a lot of the times I'll pick them up and be like, oh wow, you never know what to expect sometimes, and this one. I mean, you can give us the pitch for it. You might as well give us the pitch because there's so much crazy stuff happening in this book that it's. Yeah,
it's a book that it starts out with one pitch and then it kind of gets crazier and crazier as it goes.
Yeah, it's like every issue is like, oh wow, oh my god.
Yeah, it's the basic idea is we're introduced to this character Adrian who is sort of tormented by these waking nightmares. Mm-hmm. And in order to get rid of those, to try to deal with it, he reluctantly agrees to undergoing past life regression hypnotherapy.
Yes.
And the basic idea is it goes very wrong. He's introduced that one of his past life that he's introduced to is a horrible human being, part of this nasty demonic cult. And we kind of get a Jekyll and Hyde story. It starts trying to that life, the past life, starts trying to impose itself on his current existence, and that's sort of the initial story arc. But then from there, it just kind of turns into, as we go along, it becomes more and more of a supernatural conspiracy story. There's a lot more going on. There's some really weird elements that I start adding in as the story goes along. Mm-hmm. And especially in issues 7 and 8 get really bizarre. And
Great.
It's sort of my method of just sort of doing, trying to mess with the heads of the readers a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really just a nasty horror story.
And I will say this: the art really contributes to how disturbing some of the scenes are. It's like the way it's drawn is that there's a lot of bugs and. Giant spiders. Like I'll open a page and be like, "Oh man, I don't want to look at this page too long." It's like
it's not.
I gotta read the next part.
It's not a book for people who don't like bugs. If you have an intense phobia of insects, it's not the book for you.
So I guess like I mean you're a big comic fan growing up, but is there some type of were you a big horror movie fan growing up as well? I mean the genre seems to fit you.
Yeah. At some point. In my teens, I decided that instead of being a writer of any kind, I wanted to be a special effects makeup artist.
Oh wow!
And I got really into horror movies because of that. And I was always practicing with blood squibs and fake decapitations and all. I was doing all these horrible things because that's what I wanted to do with my life. And that kind of opened the doors to just the horror movies, and that opened my mind, opened the door to horror novels and short stories, and I've just always been interested in horror stuff since then. But even before that, as a kid, I was probably always drawn to creepy stuff just as much as superheroes. I used to read, House of Mystery comics all the time.
Oh yeah.
And all the old Charlton horror comics.
Yep.
And I was fascinated by stories as a kid. I was fascinated by stories of UFOs and Bigfoot and witches and all this stuff. I was just always into that. So I think just at some point in my teens, I got really back. It just sort of reignited for me, and I've just been a horror fan since that time.
Do you have one go-to horror movie that would be your all-time? Like, if I had one to pick and keep with me,
it's going to be a toss-up between Alien and The Thing.
Okay, yeah, those are pretty good.
That's a good toss-up.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to pick of those two which is my favorite horror movie, but they're they're both right up there.
What about growing up with comics? Did you have like a holy grail for a book, like something that you always needed to have on your pull list, or?
Well, XMen was always there. XMen was the biggest for me.
Okay.
And my dad and I used to collect Uncanny X-Men together. He was never into comics, but he enjoyed going to conventions and haggling with dealers and, and getting the best deal on comics. That's what he liked doing. And he traveled for business, and it was nothing for him to go traveling. And this is my dad has no interest in comics at all. He'd come back and say, "Oh yeah, I stopped at 3 comic shops and I got these 3 issues of X-Men for you."
Oh wow, that's so cool.
And so my dad always had my want list of X-Men with him so that he could go haggle with comic dealers, and we collected a run of X-Men from number 1 to whatever was current at in my teenage years. So I had a really nice set of X-Men comics.
Wow.
And I sold them all to pay for college. And I'm still trying to recollect them to this day.
Really?
I think I'm missing 40 issues right now to have a run.
You probably had the first Gambit in there somewhere, right? Yeah.
That was right around the time, actually, the first Gambit was probably right around the time I stopped collecting X-Men, so I had like one up until right around that time.
Wow.
And but like I said, I sold them all for college, and I kind of wish I hadn't. I kind of wish I'd skipped that college and kept the books. But
who needs college?
Yeah, but I'm working on building that collection again now. I just don't have my dad's money to help me do it. Or his haggling skill. I don't have
It is fun to haggle at cons, though. I mean, if you're a collector too, it's always be like, oh, I could find this on eBay for $20 cheaper right now, and all this stuff.
I'm not good at that. I'm not. I don't like it.
It's hard to stand your ground sometimes.
Yeah, and it didn't hurt. My dad was a very successful businessman, and he would go to these conventions, and there'd be like a card table with 12 issues of X-Men pre-94.
Yeah,
and he would go up and just say, I see what you got here. What deal are you going to cut me when I buy all of them? And he'd always he'd just buy a table full of X-Men because he had disposable income. And, and he just liked to see if he could get the best deal possible.
That's awesome.
I'm not good at that. I just don't. It's never been a talent of mine.
Well, so I got to talk about something on your website quick. When you show off your books and stuff, I really like that. Where you say where to get the book, you have a link to get the book, but you also say, like, if you can, please support local comic shops.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome because, I mean, Chris and I, we're friends with a local comic shop owner, and to this, I mean, I still get my pull list in the mail. It gets mailed to me from there, but how important do you think that is? I mean, do you still go to a local one right now? And I mean, you're obviously a collector, right? So.
Yeah, I've lived in the city where I live now for closing in on 2 years, but I'm very good friends with the guy who runs my local comic shop.
Yep.
And I think it's a big deal. I think when you don't go to your comic shop, and look, I get how easy it is. I understand. And at the end of the day, it puts me in a weird position because I want people to read my books however is convenient for them to read them, as long as they're paying for them. As long as that convenience is not downloading it illegally from some site. But I want people to read the book, whatever way is best for them. But I do feel like if you don't, these comic shops offer an experience that you don't get elsewhere, and especially if it's a really good comic shop. And I've been fortunate enough over recent years to visit so many really great comic shops. And it's not like the shops I went to when I was a kid where, the person couldn't give a damn who you were.
Yep.
You can really, find some. You can, first of all, you can discover new books that you haven't discovered before. You can find friends there. I remember as a kid forming a comic book club that met at our local comic shop.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I met some good friends in that, at the comic shop there, and I think people miss out these days on just some of the camaraderie and the conversations and the exposure to things you may not normally find if you're online looking for something, and it's to the point that often when I go into the shop, I'll just say to one of the clerks, I'll just say, "Hey, what should I be reading this week?" And they'll introduce me to books I'm not familiar with or hadn't seen before. And you miss out on that when you don't go to the comic shop. And I really want. I hope people continue to visit comic shops. Free Comic Book Day is awesome, and that exposes people to comic shops. But keep going. Don't just go on Free Comic Day. Go and see what else is there, and just try to discover some new things. And also, it doesn't hurt to support local businesses.
True. Yep.
I mean, this whole venture here, the podcast or YouTube channel, everything, is born out of Mike and I meeting at a comic shop playing D&D together. So you never know what's going to happen at your local comic shop.
You don't, and like I just said, I wouldn't be working in comics today if I hadn't worked at my local comic shop in St. Louis. It's that's how I met the artist who helped me launch my career. And you guys met at a comic shop, and I remember people playing Magic the Gathering at shops, and there's a lot more I feel like there are reasons to go to a comic shop beyond just buying your pull list. There are things that there are things you can discover and just new things. And I love going into a great comic shop that I've never been in before. It's still exciting for me because you never know what you're going to find in those places.
I love doing. I travel quite a bit for work. When I get to stop somewhere, I look up the closest comic shop because I've been to some in Canada, I've been to some in other parts of the U.S. and it's never the same. It's always like you walk in and once the clerk start to have a conversation like, oh man, like this guy knows what he's talking about. Then they'll start pulling out the old back issues and start showing me, and I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. No. I think I get how easy it is to buy stuff elsewhere. And if that's the way you have to buy your books, if you don't have a comic shop or it's not convenient to you, or you have an awful comic shop, then okay. But if there are a lot of really great shops across the country, and I think they kind of deserve, they deserve the support, and it's and these are people who are doing this because it's a tough gig.
So I think that's a great place to end the whole interview. It's been great having you on. So everybody, if you're at your local comic shop, pick up Dark Arc, pick up Unholy Grail, Brothers Dracula, anything that has Cullen Bunn's name on it, Venom, all the stuff I didn't talk about.
All of it.
And where can people find you outside of that? Twitter or your website or anything?
I have a website. It's just at cullenbunn.com, and probably the best place though is Twitter. And my handle on Twitter is just at Cullen Bunn. That's the place where I usually communicate with the most people. Throughout the day. I probably waste a little too much time on Twitter, but what are you gonna do?
Well, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it, and it's been amazing talking to you.
I'm really glad to be here, guys. Thank you so much.
You are welcome back anytime. And
awesome.
Anytime.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Force Comic News is brought to you by
Patreon. Patreon.com/Fortress of Comic News. If you enjoy our content, you like what we're doing here, you like the growth that we're making, and love the future that we have coming, go over to patreon.com/Fortress Comic News. Throw us a buck or two. You'll get into our Slack channel. You get into the basically Insiders Club. I'm there all the time. I'll let you know what's going on, what the future of Fortress Comic News is, where we're heading, what's coming up, anything. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I try to answer as many as I can, if not all. So if you have an extra buck or two, throw it over there. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show. And we're back.
Woohoo! Damn.
That was a great interview.
We had to cut it kind of short there, but we could have probably talked to him for 3 to 4 more hours. I mean, we picked a couple books there, but there's so much stuff you could talk to him about. What a nice guy, too, man. I can't wait to have him back on the show. We must be doing something right, because everybody says, they're more than happy to come back and talk to us. So,
yeah, I'm still blown away they said yes, and here we are. It was a great interview. Look forward to seeing him again.
We still have some comic news, folks. That's what we're here for, right?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, so let's get right through it. Jim Zub is taking over Champions, starting with issue number 19. I don't know if I've ever read a Zub book. Have you ever read a Zub book?
I've read quite a few Zub books. Zub is I don't know if he's done anything in DC, but he's done a lot of stuff in Marvel, and he's done a lot of independent stuff. Jim Zub's a good writer. He's not like one of my top favorites, but he's someone that not someone I shy away from. He's done some good stuff. The big thing here is he's taking over from Mark Waid.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty big.
Those are big shoes to fill, but I think it's good because that team, Mark is starting to shift that team into something different and moving forward. And I have a feeling that he has something else up his sleeve that he's doing pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen anything by him. Well, I've never read anything by him. But
I'll send you an issue, and the recommendation for anyone. He did a book called Avenging Spider-Man, and it was a Spider-Man team-up book. And I didn't read the whole run, but there was one issue in particular that he teamed up with Captain America. And it was Spider-Man trying to kind of connect with Captain America and figure out who he was. And he dug really deep into Captain America lore, where when Captain America was a kid, he used to draw his own comics. And it's just a really sweet and interesting and fun story. And it's one of my favorite Captain America stories of all time. And I'll have to pick out the exact issue for you, but...
Awesome.
Yeah.
DC Nation comic was announced, which is pretty cool. It's a 25-cent comic book issue, and you're going to get some stories from big name. I'm sure it's not all the time. They're not going to have big names on the books, but like Brian Michael Bendis, Scott Snyder, Tom King are be writing stories, which I guess it could be about anything, right? It's just like a one-shot every time.
Well, I don't remember what they said Scott Snyder was doing, but I know Bendis is doing a Superman story, and Tom King was doing a Joker story that's supposed to tie into his Batman run.
Okay.
So I think it's a way to kind of get people into those books at a cheap price.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up whatever book they put out for 25 cents. I mean, come on.
Especially you put those 3 names on the cover.
I know, right? Come on. Yeah, do you want to talk about Action 1000? We're hitting 1,000.
They were going to do... Well, they're still doing it, but they're doing an Action 1000 hardcover book. And people got confused by the name. So they decided to change the name. And so it's now going to be Action Comics...
80 Years of Superman.
80 Years of Superman. And this was always a book that was going to have like a few little short stories. It has an unpublished story by Siegel and Schuster, and then kind of just a bunch of quick essays from writers as what Superman means to them and stuff like that. So this wasn't the official issue 1000. This was just kind of an ancillary book.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to take some confusion from the marketplace. I guess a lot of retailers were complaining that people didn't know what it was.
Yeah, because there's going to be an Action 1000, and then there's going to be the Action 1000. It's like,
yeah.
I'm glad they changed it. So Bendis is going to be taking over Superman, as well as Action Comics, right?
Yeah. So here, we'll run through it real quick because we're running close on time, but basically the Bendis Action Hour here.
I know.
So it's announced that he's taking over the entire line of Superman.
Yeah.
He's going to do Superman, he's going to do Action. Action is going to continue with its normal numbering, while Superman's going to be republished as a new number 1. On top of that, the month before he starts, they're going to do a weekly 4-issue miniseries called Man of Steel that leads up to what he's doing in Superman. I think it's perfect for him to do, especially if he splits the 2 books and says Superman is a high-flying adventure book, while Action is kind of a ground-level in Metropolis book.
Yep.
And I just love Bendis, so I'm down to read whatever he does.
Yeah, so I'll be continuing to read Superman. Kind of interesting. One of the best. I mean, if you try to get someone into Superman, they usually hand you Man of Steel from was it like the mid '80s? I think is is like a 4-issue series.
Yep. And
that's like held as it's just the Superman story. It's just that plain and simple. This is Superman, the Man of Steel, and it's a great read. It's only 4 issues.
Yeah, and I think that's John Byrne that wrote that.
Yep, John Byrne.
And
you're right.
That's kind of where this whole idea came from. Is he wanted to do a Byrne-esque intro into his Superman run.
That's
he
cool.
even said that in interviews. And then finally, it was announced officially that a lot of his creator-owned stuff is heading over to DC as well, and it's not going to Vertigo. He's actually going to get his own imprint, much like Gerard Way did with the Young Animals imprint. He'll have another imprint. So now DC has more imprints than Image, and
everything's going crazy now.
But that gives him, and he also said it's not just for him to do his stuff. He's going to try to get more people in to do their own stuff and kind of build the portfolio there. So, I mean, that's really cool. It could get DC some up and coming talent moving in. So
that's really cool.
That's really it for the news. What have you been reading?
I read quite a few books this week. I talked about it in the interview, Red Regression, which is a really good like psychological thriller / horror book by Cullen Bunn. I'm caught up on that. There's 6 issues out right now. The first story arc is the first 5 issues. There's a trade for that, but it's really good. The art is fantastic. Like I said in the interview, again, it's really creepy, and it's a nice twist on. I can almost see it being like a TV show or something. It's every issue gets better and better. I checked out a new book this week. There's a new Image number 1. Oh, there's a couple number 1s. The one I was reading is called VS, like Versus. It's an interesting book. Like it kind of starts off where these people are in war. They're fighting with each other, and like this drone flies in and tells them, "Okay, you need to take a break from the war zone." And it's almost like, I think the people. I don't know. You don't know too much yet, but I think the people are almost locked in like virtual reality style. It's pretty interesting. The art was pretty cool. That's why I took a look at it. If anybody likes type of futuristic war, well, it seems to be like a war story so far. Check it out. It's called Versus. Number 1 came out this week. The Swamp Thing Winter Special. Man, you read that too, right?
I did.
First off, Tom King. Like, damn, dude.
Hit you right in the feels.
Yeah, I thought Alan Moore's run of Swamp Thing was depressing. This takes it to a whole new level. So we get, it's just a one shot. If you like Swamp Thing, if you just like good storytelling, it's just Swamp Thing he's protecting this kid, and they're running from like a snow monster, they keep calling it. And there's all this reflection on there's like there's a lot of philosophy, there's a lot of like deep conversations that they have with each other, like this young boy and Swamp Thing. And by the end of the book, I mean, you find out who the real snow monster is, and it's the reveal's great. The feelings that are involved with the book is very sad. But that's just
psychological book too.
Yes, yeah, it is. And he doesn't even use that many words. Like it's a quick read. It's the quickest 80-page giant I've ever read. Jason Fabok's art is fantastic as usual. But yeah, it is. There's not a whole lot to be said in the book, but it's one of the best Swamp Thing stories. I want him on a Swamp Thing book so bad now. I really do. I thought, oh man, it was so worth the money that you pay for it. I think it was like $7.99. So worth it. What did you think?
I absolutely loved it. I agree with everything you say. The ending was fantastic, and then the Len Wein issue that they put at the end was fun too. It was a great send off for him and his book.
Yep.
But Tom King killed it on this. I mean, you really like don't know what the fuck's going on until you're about halfway through, and then it kind of starts to click, and when you realize what he has to do, you're don't go there, man.
Yeah, you're like, don't do it, Swamp Thing.
And it's so great.
Really good too. Walking Dead 176. I think I'm kind of like back on board. I'm on the upswing now. The Walking Dead story getting me more into it.
Yep.
Basically, you learn that they're like within a city almost, and by the end of the issue, Michonne meets up with her daughter. Yeah, that's pretty much. And it's weird. Like the soldiers know they're like grunt workers. They kind of understand that they're soldiers. Really organized community. So I'm just waiting for everything to go wrong. There's got to be something wrong with these people. There's something they're hiding. You know, there's always a bad side.
Well, we got a little taste of it.
Yeah,
like you could tell there's some sort of
tension,
labor distribution that's not good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it's shown by this moment where the woman who got in contact with I'm zoning out his name now, but that basically got them to come there, tries to talk to the group as they're passing by in town, and she's scolded by the people marching with them. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely something there.
You also get it from the soldier and like the governor, where she. I didn't realize. Like, did they call her the governor? Is that what they call her?
I don't remember. I think it was mayor.
Yeah, mayor, something like that. I just realized the relevant stuff. They do call her the governor. It's like, oh man, another governor. But there's an interaction between one of the soldiers and her where she's like, yeah, they know their place, right? And they're like, yes, we know our place, or something like that. Yeah. Paper Girls number 20 was a really good read this week. Chris made me feel bad last time. He said that I run a comic show and don't read a lot of comics because I think I didn't have anything that came out that week. So I read a ton. Paper Girls is really good. We're still messed up with the timeline. They get to operate a giant robot, and that was pretty cool to see. I'm all about giant robots. But basically, the guy from the future who kind of runs everything finds out where they are, and he wants to go find them. But they kind of like time travel, and they go way too far in the future. They're trying to go back, or they're trying to go back to 1980s, and they're in the year 2000. And I think they fast forward like 1,000 years or something. So that's kind of where the issue ends. They end up in the wrong timeline. They went back to the future essentially. So we get to see what life is like in the very, 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 very distant future. Batman number 40 was a really good book. We get this, Batman and Wonder Woman are still trapped in this other dimension, just fighting hordes of monsters and demons while they let this, I forget what they call him, they let this one guy out. Like, that's his destiny, is to be fighting hordes of demons for the rest of his life to keep them back and not over to the Earth's dimension, kind of. So he's been hanging out with Catwoman. Catwoman's kind of like chaperoning him. He gets one day out of that realm, and he has to go back because I think like every hour is like 10 years in the other realm. So like Wonder Woman and Batman have been fighting demons for like 40 years or something, but they don't age. So it's pretty crazy. It's kind of by the end of the story, Catwoman kind of realizes like I think she confirms that she loves Bruce for sure, and that like the whole marriage thing is a good decision for her. I think that's it. What do you got?
Okay, I'll run quick. I got Dark Arc number 5. We talked a ton about Dark Arc with Cullen, so I'm not going to get into it, but awesome book.
Yep.
Infinity Countdown number 1, Adam Warlock. So anyone that doesn't know who Adam Warlock is, it's about as nerdy as you get when it comes to Marvel Comics. And you will all know him very soon as Guardians of the Galaxy 3 comes out.
Exactly.
And so he basically goes in these cocoons whenever he dies and is reborn. And at this time, his cocoon is taken from Kang the Conqueror, and he's brought to the end of time. And Kang explains to him what's going to happen and that he needs to help out, and then sends him back to when Kang was an Egyptian ruler back in that time period. Sends him to himself, gives him the Soul Stone, and then locks him in a tomb and says, "We'll come get you when the time is right."
Oh, okay.
So it was a really crazy story. Mike Aura did the art, and I'm really happy because Jerry Duggan is on the book, and I finally get to read Jerry Duggan stuff again because he's not doing Deadpool.
Great.
I hate Fairyland number 16. I hate Fairyland's back. So
yes.
If you didn't know, spoilers, Gert died in the last arc, and she was sent to hell. So the devil's trying to figure out how to torture her, and she just kind of laughs at him at every corner. So then the devil sends her back to where she wanted to go, which was her home, to her parents. And basically, like, screws with her while she's there. And she just goes, like, this isn't going to work, and makes fun of him again. So he goes, you know what? The only way I can torture you is to send you back to the one place you hate. So she's back to Fairyland now.
Oh, okay.
It was a cool twist.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Avengers No Surrender. I don't want to spoil too much because it's a weekly book, but basically the Avengers know what's going on now. There's some sort of game being played, and there's 2 Elders of the Universe playing it with them. So it's getting really interesting. And yeah, love that book. Oh, that's 78. I read, so I've been picking up all these like New Age of Heroes DC. So I picked up the Silencer. You might like the Silencer.
Really?
It's John Romita Jr. and Dan Abnett. So it's written good, and I know you kind of like Romita Jr.'s art. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it with like mainstream DC stuff. I thought it worked really well for Kick-Ass. But like ever since I've ever tried to read another JRR book, I just see Kick-Ass every time I read it. And that's why I think you might like it, because this doesn't do a whole lot with the main DC continuity. Okay. The only character you will recognize is Talia al Ghul. Okay. And this woman's just she's an assassin, and her ability is that she can create a dome of silence. While she's fighting. And it's just a lot of action and assassin type stuff. It was fun. I think I'm going to pick up issue 2. I actually kind of liked it, and I would recommend it to you specifically and to anyone out there that's listening. Okay, I'll check it out. The Realm number 5. The Realm's awesome. Pick it up. That's all you have to say. If you love Walking Dead, it's basically what if The Walking Dead was in a fantasy universe.
Okay.
Which is a concept I'm familiar with because I am doing a What If The Walking Dead Was Something comic right now. And I love it. Like, there's a character who wears this weird mask. He looks like a Talon, and he's just fucking badass. And there's this guy that looks like a Irishman, but a brute at the same time, who's just like cutting the heads off goblins. And there's fucking dragons and shit. And the book's so good. And then
there's dragons and shit.
I was surprised you didn't talk about DC Metal number 5.
Did that come out a couple weeks ago?
That was 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yes. Oh man.
So
I'm kidding. Yeah, let's talk about that. You start me off here. Refresh my memory.
We got Batman and Superman at the Forge of Worlds.
Yes.
And they're doing their thing. And then who was it? Mr. Terrific and the Green Lantern are in this jail cell. And they end up meeting up with somebody who is the Martian Manhunter, who we haven't seen in a while.
Yes, I got really excited for that part because like everybody's screaming like, where the hell's Martian Manhunter been in the DC universe?
And it's a lot of like all these characters who are split, like Aquaman and Deathstroke are together, and Wonder Woman, I forget who are together, and they kind of meet their match.
Yeah,
and have to fight. So, like, there's a great fight between Aquaman and Black Manta.
Black Manta, yep.
And I forget how the book ended, actually.
The book ends where Wonder Woman gets back to Earth, and basically all the villains are released like on Earth, and there's just like chaos everywhere.
Yes. And it ends with her in a war cry.
Yeah. Yeah, basically she's just gonna fight everyone. So she might win. I don't know. She found Hawkman's mace, and but by then they said it was too late. I'm sure by the end of it, someone's gonna come in with a clutch play here and win it. I just want to see Plastic Man show up and save the day. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, and I'm really intrigued. Like, we're getting the Grant Morrison penned tie-in next week, and I'm excited for that, but I'm just so much more excited for 6 because I want to know how this all wraps up. He's got to wrap up this whole story in issue 6. Yep. And then B, I want to know how this new Age of Heroes is connected to it, because these are all, they say on the cover, from the events of Dark Knight Metal.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what's going on there. But the book's been awesome.
I doubt, I guess. Yeah, it's been really good.
So, Mike, we did it.
We did it.
Another
long
episode.
show, great content, everyone. You can find me at Ricker621 on Instagram. Where can you find Christopher?
At Fortress News Chris on Instagram and Fortress Chris on Twitter. And then find the show at fortresscomicnews.com or youtube.com/fortresscomicnews. And any podcast service you like, whether it be Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or Google Play. Remember, if you are listening to us on the audio version, leave us a review. It helps out with the algorithm stuff that's happening. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. We're doing a good job. And subscribe to the channel. Comment below. Get the conversation flowing. And subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything that is Fortress Comic News. And I think that's everything.
See ya, everyone. Tune in next week to see what background I'm going to have.
That's the only reason they're going to tune in, too. Bye, everybody.